It's the ERP Confab. I'm David Essex, industry editor at TechTarget's ERP website. At its recent Cloud World annual user conference in Las Vegas, Oracle unveiled a new product, Oracle Database at AWS, that enables customers to access the Autonomous Database and Exadata database service on Amazon Web Services. It was just the latest in Oracle's strategic moves to establish itself as a major player in cloud services and build on its claim to be the only vendor with the full cloud stack, from basic infrastructure up through the database and finally SaaS business applications. But Oracle Cloud Infrastructure wasn't the only technology making news at Cloud World. Oracle introduced a batch of generative AI agents for its Fusion Cloud ERP and supply chain applications, a sustainability offering, and many other new features. My guest, Holger Mueller, an analyst at Constellation Research, joins the podcast to give his take on what the cloud infrastructure announcements mean for Oracle's cloud strategy and its customers, and where the Cloud World developments leave Oracle in its rivalry with SAP. Holger, you recently traveled to Oracle Cloud World. I was not able to go there, but I did see some of the virtual keynotes. As usual, there were quite a few announcements and some big keynotes. From your perspective, what were the two or maybe three biggest announcements or developments?
Great question. Obviously, Oracle wants us to know and lead clearly about the last of the three big cloud vendors missing, right? The multi-cloud, as Oracle calls it, the ability to run the Oracle database at AWS. Something which I asked Clay McGurrick back when they had the analyst meeting in spring in Seattle. You only have one cloud missing. Google just came out the week before. When do you think it's Amazon's going to be? And said, I don't know. And so behind the scenes, I was thinking maybe it's going to be a reInvent, probably next summer. So I was really surprised this happened so soon. But it was great on stage, right? They did definitely something better. The third time a multi-cloud announcement was there. Back then, when it was with Microsoft for Azure and with Google in spring, there was no common customer. But today in the keynote with Larry, where Matt Garman, the CEO of AWS, was there was also the CTO or CIO of JP Morgan, who was an instigator on that, being an Oracle customer and an avid AWS user, right? So, and that's perfect, right? The customer has to win. Even enemies become now frenemies. Competition is alive and well. And there's choice for customers and competition, and it's great for customers who use the Oracle database and use a different cloud and want to build their applications there. And it's good to see that Oracle wants to compete on the merits, right? That's certainly the big one. The other one, which didn't get so much attention, is in the analytics team, they announced the intelligent data lake. Should have been a lake house to a certain point, but maybe that would have been too much because there's always competition between data lakes and the database, right? So internally knowing Oracle. But that's super, super important because lake houses are the foundation for AI. Oracle has a super interesting AI story. We can talk about that later. In general, investing massively in the data centers, right, which was no surprise or confirmation. Didn't make the top 10. What made my top 3 is the zettabyte scale, right? They launched their zettabyte instance supercluster, which has over 2 zettabytes, I think 130,000 Blackwell instances, so incredible scale, and are attracting significant AI workloads, right? And from interesting corners, right? The press release has a Brazilian large language model AI company on there, which is training their things in Brazil, right? The ability of Oracle with their OCI 2.0, right? Which really, if you count all the attempts that Oracle has done to cloud, would be 3.5 if you count in a positive way. It's amazing how small the footprint of that cloud has become, right? Clay McGurrick in his keynote showed it's basically 3 of these typical fridges where you can run the whole Oracle stack as the smallest footprint, right? And that fits literally in every data center you want, in every hosted colo that you want, in every data center Oracle wants to open. If you, let's say you're San Marino, right? How much do you have to put in data center to San Marino for 50,000 inhabitants, I believe, or something, right? Who's going to be there, right? And Oracle is really planting the flag in more locations because of that footprint and design of the network. Also, they're interesting. So I keep rambling. The Oracle, similarly, it's no surprise actually, right? Amazon, like 8 years ago, let us look behind under the bonnet. What is going on inside of Amazon and or AWS, and they said we built our own network because it had to be better than what we could get from Cisco, right? One part of the malaise at Cisco is that no cloud is using their network infrastructure, which is interesting. And no surprise because Clay McGurrick and much of the team came from AWS as well. Oracle has their own network infrastructure too. which Larry revealed in his keynote, talking about more security capabilities which are coming soon. Yeah, but that would round up. Sorry, long answer.
No,
David.
that's okay. I'm curious, just before we go ahead on other questions, that sort of efficiency or size of the data centers, how do they compare to other companies that are doing similar things? Are they a little bit ahead or kind of advanced in sort of downsizing the footprint, or is that something that a lot of people are doing?
Yeah, I think it always matters what is the load you have in mind when you design your data centers, no matter if you're an enterprise or if you're a cloud. And that's exactly the case which you can look like AWS, Microsoft, very strong on taking web loads, right? So hosting your website on their environments, right? And storing data with S3 as an example, right? And I mean, let us be very clear, right? Amazon's use case is running Amazon, right? So running large retail applications. So that's a different design point that Microsoft, which was largely running Outlook, which is also very different. And for Oracle, it was clear I have to move these database workloads from on-premise to the cloud. And database workloads are an interesting combination of storage, which you want to make cheap but durable, and compute to run the views, to run the materializations and the inserts and the updates and so on. So you want to have something which is easy to configure between storage and expensive CPUs at the time. Turns out that design point, which is kind of a situation of luck to a certain point, you can say, for Oracle, is a great design point for AI workloads as well. Because you have these lake houses, we talked about this before, huge storage places, which you have to maybe feed information only once, but you don't want those now GPUs idle for seconds because it's so expensive and feed that information to them. And that's kind of like a lucky situation for Oracle. But then back to the original workload case, knowing that there's data residency compliance reasons, it was clear that AWS-sized data center will never get Oracle into, let's make the funny case again of San Marino or Andorra, right? So, but they might have data residency. Like 70%, I saw the stat this week, 70% of countries in the world have data residency requirements, right? That's bad news for the large footprints you see, right? And to round it up, right, Google's footprint obviously is organic workload on the YouTube search, advertisement, and so on side, right? So it's a very different design point there again. And this leads to specific advantages, right? This leads to, talk about Google for a second, right, to a very, very fast network. Nobody has as much fiber network like Google. Yeah, we can test this very easily if you land in any country in the world and check your email on your smartphone. The email which is first there is Gmail, because Gmail's traffic is just a rounding error to whatever in that country people are doing on YouTube and advertisement at any second and so on, right? So I think it's always important. I usually talk about the organizational DNA of tech vendors, right? What they're founded about, and they're usually business related. But on the cloud side, it's very clear. You can see that also from the design point for that. And that turns out it's good for Oracle, a very good design point to be so nimble, to start small data centers, and to have a really attractive design point for cloud infrastructure, for AI workloads. Yeah. And that's working really well for them. Yeah. So, I mean, they've overtaken Amazon in terms of data centers now or anytime soon, right? Which was unthinkable. Yeah, it was preposterous when Larry said that at some point.
For several years now, it seemed to me anyway that Oracle has been ahead of SAP in providing a complete suite of integrated multi-tenant SaaS applications for all the major ERP functions, finance, HR, supply chain, CX, order management, etc. SAPs, in contrast, have either not been multi-tenant SaaS, or if they're SaaS, they're not as capable as the on-premises equivalent, or they're not as well integrated and still have a sort of separate identity. And success factors and Concur maybe are two good examples. Is that your sense of things too, or am I not giving SAP enough credit?
No, you're absolutely on the money there, David. I mean, there's no question about it. But quickly, like multi-tenant SaaS doesn't really matter anymore so much, right? Because every customer now is in their own database, right? Multi-tenancy, as Oracle defines this with a pluggable database, that is what's relevant, right? So I can move a customer easily from on-premise to the cloud to a different country and so on, because I have their own data store, right? But no, I asked exactly that question to Steve Miranda in his Q&A and said, look, we're in an interesting situation in general, and I think you and me talked about this already, right? In the past, if you looked at the ERP space, yes, there was always new technology, right? There was client server, there was the internet architecture, you can say the cloud architecture, and never all vendors went lockstep, right, at the same time to that, right? There were earlier ones which got bleeding noses, and there were later adopters, but it was like a 3-4 year horizon, right? Now, for the first time, we have the two leading ERP vendors with Oracle and SAP being literally 10 years apart, in their product maturity and start of their efforts, right? Fusion, if you all remember, started in 2004. S/4HANA started in 2014. A decade is a long time, even if you have to build an ERP suite. It took Oracle more than a decade, right? 2016, I remember Steve Miranda saying, I'm now sure I have the functional equivalency to everything that customers have, not only just in the e-business suite, but also in JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, Siebel, and so on, right? So it took Oracle 12 years, right? And SAP was always very brash and say, oh, we're going to be there, we're going to be there. Turns out, with the upgrade problem that they have, that they're not yet there, right? And it's probably going to take 12 years or something, which will be 2026 or so for SAP, assuming the same speed of building stuff to be there, right? So, or around that, plus minus something, right? We know it's not plus minus, it's not -2 because they're not there. And today is 10 years anniversary of S/4HANA. Somewhere I have to look up when the launch was. I think it's already past that, but I think if it was early
like February, unless
February, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's 10 and a half years for S/4HANA already, right? And we can start benchmarking now. But the interesting thing is, I think we won't see this technology changes anymore, right? This mainframe to client server and so on, because everything is in the cloud. It might be happening in the background. It might be happening, but the platforming is not going to be transparent to the customer. Yeah, there might be different costs involved, different flexibility, and so on. But that gives Oracle a significant lead. And in fact, to your point back, I asked Steve Miranda, why don't we see more SAP takeaways, right? I mean, I reminded him, which he didn't like, on the moniker of Fusion Confusion, right? SAP did some significant inroads in the 2007, 8, 9 years into the Oracle install base, right? Because it wasn't clear when Fusion would be around and customer had to upgrade. Oracle's not doing that yet. I think they're too conservative. I think they have the broadest, most integrated suite out there. They have a weakness which hurts them in manufacturing, right? Internal organization tidbit, right? The gentleman in charge of HCM, Chris Leone, since 1.5 years is also in charge of manufacturing, the weakest part of the Oracle suite, SaaS suite, and it has done significant progress in the last 12 months, and it's going to keep making significant progress. And that's going to be the key thing for Oracle, if they will ever do this, to mount an attack on SAP customers, because they were so weak in manufacturing traditionally. So if they catch up on manufacturing, I think Oracle's in a significantly better position. And they have a number of wins in Germany, to give credit to Oracle in that perspective. But yeah, it's the most integrated, best, broadest, deepest ERP suite which is out there. Yeah.
Now, another big announcement in the Suite World part of the show, at least, was about NetSuite getting the Oracle Redwood UI or UX throughout the platform. I guess it was in parts of NetSuite.
Yes.
How do you think that move positions NetSuite in the SaaS ERP competition for small, medium-sized businesses?
Redwood is a very good, successful design system. But it keeps winning accolades in design competitions. It's taking the Fusion guys, the big brothers, a long time to get there, so it's going to be really interesting. I was working, full disclosure, you can see it in LinkedIn, I worked at Oracle, and I was asked to take a look at the NetSuite Net Ledger architecture at the time, which was doing interesting stuff, and talked to Evan Goldberg quite a lot at the time, and he was very, very proud of it being a fully declarative architecture, not hard-coded, which is taking a long time on the Oracle side right now to get this done. So I'm really, really curious. I didn't manage to go to NetSuite. I would like to have them look. So you're going to be done in half a year or something? It's just a repository change to go to Redwood, or are there other improvements? And fair enough, right? I give that hard question. I cover people systems, as you know. Ask Chris Leone the same thing, why it's taking you years to get there, right? And there's a lot of hard-coded things. And then there's, of course, a chance not to move it one-to-one, but to redesign it. What I would like to see and hope is that there should be more AI in this process, right? To convert those older legacy UIs. But the interesting thing is, Oracle has a clear dual strategy on the ERP side, right? The large enterprise one, and NetSuite, which is kind of like bumping up, and Oracle's bumping down. There's some confusion sometimes, but they're being very clear from that perspective. But the unique capability option here is now that down the road, I can see an Oracle customer blending the capabilities of the both two suites. It's all a way. I might be using the NetSuite e-commerce, but I'm using the Oracle Finance because I have the finance complexity. And if users don't see that complexity from the UI, I think you're in a very good position. So it's going to be not only make Oracle unique in the sense that they have a large enterprise suite and a separate code development for small enterprise, which is the debate thing, right? Workday, as an example, says we can tier our system down to SMB, right? We'll see how that works. The interesting thing is it has never worked, right? It has never worked that an SMB went to large enterprise, right? You and me are old enough to know Bahn, right? Bahn did well in manufacturing. They managed to go large enterprise. But if you keep in mind, like manufacturing is run kind of like small enterprise because you put a factory there. There's maybe 5,000 people working in the factory. It was a big one, but it ran at the time. It ran its own client server system. It was like an SMB company. Now, of course, you can replicate SMB companies being manufacturing driven, right? No problem there. It has never been done the other way either. That someone from large side went down to the small side. So I think the Oracle setup is interesting, and the common UI allows this two-tier sidecar ERP, which was a name that SAP is using, right? Where you used then the by design option, or the even smaller, forgot the name, Business One, I believe, Israeli stemming acquisition, right? Where companies had different sizes and would use different things in the portfolio, but it would be always a fasten your seatbelt UI experience, which now Oracle has a chance of not having. So I think it's very interesting. And makes sense, right? Why would you have NetSuite come up with a new UX system? Right? Why would you one up each other, right? Why would you have people saying, I'm feeling bad with this Redwood 2018 design. I want to have the, I don't know, what's another tree, the Sequoia.
Right.
Redwood, right? I don't want to have the coastal Redwood. I want to have the Sequoia Redwood or something. Yeah. So smart move, I think. I don't know if Evan or anybody in NetSuite shared the timeline for that move, right? So
You kind of alluded to this a couple times in your last answer. I guess I'm still wondering though, where this places the whole issue of how NetSuite fits into the broader Oracle line. That was a pretty big issue when they bought it. It's been quite a few years now when Oracle bought NetSuite. And there was an issue I heard about not confusing customers. And
yep.
given where NetSuite stood maybe in the last year or two, but then also now getting the Redwood UI, how does that kind of change that picture, if at all?
I don't think the UI will change the picture. I think the UI will give Oracle more options to blend these offerings as needed, right? And it might not be blended, right? You're in the smaller countries, you're on NetSuite. In the larger countries, you're on Oracle. It's all running in OCI anyway. You have fast interconnects and so on. You can use economies of scale. You might have subsidiaries. You might buy someone who's smaller. You want them on NetSuite. You want Oracle. So I think the congruence to a certain point is there, but I believe there's a fundamental difference if you run. And I see this in HR, right? I give you the example, right? If you're a startup company with 100, 150 employees, you have no HR person, right? It's the executive assistant of the CEO founder, or it's the wife of the founder who runs payroll once a month for a little bit, right? So if you enter like the 200, 250, you get the first HR person. They usually look a little bit after payroll, but you have nobody doing talent management, right? If you get in the 500 realms, you get somebody with the pressures on recruiting, somebody who's doing talent acquisition, some talent things. Or if you're in a white collar company, you have somebody who's doing learning, training, and so on. So the automation demands of a 0 person, a 5 person, a 10 person, a 100 person HR department are fundamentally different. And to build software for them with one size fits all is very, very hard. So I think the separate automation parts make sense that Oracle is doing. They're doing well. They have to be clear on the confusion of which is the right product for who. That's always a luxury that a multi-product vendor has. And I think the one UI gives them more options to play and create more value at the end of the day, which matters, more value for customers.
One of the big announcements was this new Oracle database at AWS offering, which, as I understand it, lets customers access Oracle Autonomous Database on dedicated infrastructure and Oracle Exadata database service on AWS. Larry Ellison gave it a pretty prominent place in his keynote. How important was that move? Let's start first for Oracle. How important is it for them?
I mean, it's important for Oracle customers, right? The Oracle customers who let's look at JP Morgan, right? JP Morgan is a long-term Oracle database customer, but they're also using AWS to build things. For them, it meant that they would have to either bring their own license, which is expensive. AWS doesn't have an Exadata architecture, right? Exadata is the most efficient way to run the Oracle database. No surprise, Oracle knows exactly what the Oracle database knows. It's almost unfair, right? That somebody knows their software and then can build hardware for it. It's all of Larry's vision to build the IBM of the 21st century, which we should talk a little bit about. I think Oracle is very, very close to that. That gives customers a chance to have the zero ETL, as AWS likes to call it, right? If my Oracle database runs inside the AWS data center, I don't have to extract data, move data, get egress costs from another cloud, and so on, right? So this is perfect for customers, and customers should win. And Oracle likes it because it doesn't get the point of somebody trying to replaced the Oracle database with something better, right? Which is the interesting thing. You and me have been doing enterprise software for a long time, right? I don't know a single area of the stack where somebody has won so wholeheartedly like the Oracle database. Yeah, so 30 years ago, there was around 10% market share in that space, right? I mean, there was Sybase, the SQL Server spin-off, and IBM had DB2, there was Infomix, there was Ingress. I don't know how many databases were there, right? It was very unclear. I mean, as a matter of fact, right, one of the reasons why SAP has been so successful is because Hasso Plattner, in his technology tour of Silicon Valley in the late 80s, bet on Oracle as the winner. If SAP would have bet on Infomix, right, or something like this, or another database, it would have been a migration at some point because companies, enterprise were running on Oracle. But the last man standing in this, and very interesting, we should dig this out, right? 5 reinvents ago, the CTO of AWS, Werner Vogel, spent half of his keynote, which has never happened before, to the reason that an on-premise database is not the right thing for the cloud era, and this is why Amazon is moving off. And actually, I have to check with Dave Vellante again. I thought they moved off completely, but he said they only moved analytical workloads, which was a start. So we have to find out how much did Amazon really move away. But Athena, Amazon's in the cloud transaction database, was always the competition on the transaction side and was the last literally product standing. And that's also gone now, right? That was very eye-opener for me last year when Microsoft did the partnership the same way. SQL Server has always been a thorn in the side in Oracle. Larry Ellison making comments on SQL Server and so on. Right, wrong, doesn't really matter, right? And I was expecting the next day or the next week I would see a commitment press release out of Microsoft and saying, we have so and so many customers, thousands of customers on SQL Server, we will not let this go. Here's our roadmap, we all like this, right? Nothing like that happened, right? So complete obliteration in the transactional, mission-critical transactional database markets. And I have not seen this in any category going down to one. Right? So there would be dominant player, whatever Java would be dominant player, but there was C# already coming out and so on. Right? So operating systems, yes, Windows has a great role, but there's Mac OS and there's Linux and so on. Right? So yes, 50, 60, 70% market share, yes, but nobody really competing. I have not seen that. And that's really the behind the scenes enterprise software comment on that. But great for customers, right? You can move your Oracle database in the cloud of your liking. You can keep it with Oracle, or you can compete with, or you put it into AWS and Google Cloud or into Azure. Yeah.
You know, I love talking to you, period, but especially since you're someone who has been covering the industry a long time, but worked at both SAP and Oracle going pretty far back, reminding us about the choice by Hasso Plattner of the Oracle database, because I wasn't following those two companies so closely back then, but when I saw all those HANA and S4HANA presentations, I didn't hear a lot of mention of I don't think maybe you didn't even mention HANA when you were listing the different databases like DB2, SQL. No. It's just interesting because of how much HANA and then, you know, the new ERP, relatively new ERP running on HANA has been so important, at least to the story SAP's been putting out.
No, historically, I mean, it's still in the product, right? As for HANA, right? So HANA is definitely prominent. And we should do a separate thing about SAP maybe, because we're in the post-Hasso Plattner founder era now, and things are changing rapidly with lots of board members changing and so on. The youngest, the most inexperienced board from a tenure perspective, there's only 3 board members with tenure over 1 year. That's unheard of for SAP, right? Mathematically, it was only less tenured when SAP became a public company, and nobody was a board member in a public company, right? So the clock started at 0 there, right? So that is very, very interesting. And HANA overall, to quickly talk about this, right, had a tremendous invigorating effect. I was there the second time for the self-esteem of SAP, but the problem of the design point of HANA as an in-memory database is it's in a lost situation, because business relevant data is growing faster than in-memory prices fall, right? So the secret behind R3 as a client-server system was that Moore's Law saved SAP, right? It was not foreseeable that you could run an ERP on a client-server architecture, but Moore's Law made that possible, which manifested itself only in the 90s, right? And then you got agility out of client-server, giving every country their own ERP system, not having to do global rollouts, not having limited resource on the mainframe of adding a field for the French, one for the Italians, we're out of space, cost us too much and so on. So it's tremendous agility and speed, business re-engineering, right? Professor Hammer was big there, saying that's what you want to do. So it had its own dynamic at the time. The problem is that in the 21st century, business relevant data has to go into, now we call them lake houses, right? But call it big data, whatever. You have to have there was a cheap ability out of the Yahoo invention of Hadoop, right? Ability to store everything that's electronically available without knowing what questions you would ask, right? Was the advertising use case, right? But the same thing is also the business use case where you have all digital information available. What's one man's trash is another man's gold, right? could be relevant to that. And then remember, in the data mining area, this is coming up more and more. I like it. There was the famous diapers and beer thing, right? Where retailers figured out, oh my God, the father of the fresh family is driving home, they're out of diapers, he's stepping by and he's going to pick up the beer if it's next to it. But no retailer had diapers and beer next to each other, right? There's 1,000, if not more, diapers and beer moments in the data of an enterprise, which historically has been siloed in different areas. And putting that in memory and memory price not coming down faster than business relevant data basically put HANA into a dead end. And I would even say here, SAP would have been better off without HANA and standardizing Oracle. All the way to today, because many of the SAP customers, the ECC customers are still running on Oracle. If they would go to Exadata, SAP could claim cloud revenue and cloud operations, right? So, yeah, so it's almost unfortunate where how the story has panned out so far, right? So,
Right. Oracle executives often brag that they're the only vendor with the full cloud stack from cloud infrastructure up to the database and
right.
finally the business applications. And in their analyst calls, other communications with the business community, the cloud database and infrastructure wins seem to be as much a part of Oracle's cloud story, if not more so than the applications like Oracle Cloud ERP. Is that your take on it too? And then how successful do you think Oracle's strategy will be in positioning itself as a major cloud provider as opposed to a vendor of legacy apps, which it still also sells, or at least it sells, I think, private cloud versions of things like JD Edwards. So I guess I'm asking, what do you think of that stack story as the center of their cloud story, which is what everyone wants to hear on Wall Street nowadays?
Right. The stack story is very, very powerful, right? And interesting enough, Larry's turned 80, right? So Larry and Safra realized a unique opportunity. I've been looking at the Oracle earnings numbers like everybody in the space, and Oracle rarely spent more than 1 billion per quarter in capex. Since they have this opportunity around AI and realizing they have the right footprint, as we said before, to run AI workloads really well, they're investing like drunken sailors to the rate of 30 billion. And Larry said something, I think 50 billion next 2 years or something, right? So there might be some slowdown. But if you look like half of free cash flow of Oracle, it's unheard of. I don't know what Safra is drinking or thinking, but I know what they're thinking, right? They see this unique opportunity to be the place to run AI workloads, which are by nature sticky, of people who don't have their own native AI capabilities like Google and Microsoft and AWS are building them, right? Microsoft might be building as well to a certain point, right? It's funny how they say we're the only SaaS vendor with a cloud stack, right? They keep forgetting Microsoft, but Microsoft is not seen as a main competitor in that space. But you have to keep them there at least from that perspective. But that gives them tremendous advantages, right? If you look in the speed and let's compare the large ERP vendors, right? Let's compare Oracle, SAP, and Workday, right? Oracle has a 9 to 12 months lead on the other two because they didn't have to build this abstraction layer, right? Because they don't have to run multiple clouds. There's only one way of doing AI, and that's on OCI. The good news is it's not a proprietary, only one way to do it as Oracle thought of it, like every native Google workload runs on TensorFlow, right, and TPUs, right, for reasons we can also delve into. But there's a choice, right? If Cohere is the better framework, they use Cohere. If Llama is the better framework, they use it. So it's very similar from a strategy like Amazon's Bedrock strategy or the Model Garden at Google, right, where everybody can come and you choose which LLM, which AI you're going to use for your solutions. But if you look like Stephen Miranda announced 50 traditional AI things, they overpassed it with 100. They now talk about 50 agents. There was mild optimism they pass over the agents too, because in the agentic, the third area of AI, that makes it significantly easier. And that overcapacity creates a lot of sticky workloads and is the way for Oracle to grow for people who want to build on NVIDIA machines, right? Which for now is a lot of people. Yeah. The only place where you can get spare NVIDIA machines right now in the cloud is at Oracle. And they shared very interesting at the Analyst Summit, like how do they get ahead of the line? They pay cash beforehand to the providers. So jump in front of the line building data centers by taking more cash in the hand, and that's what you see like at the rate of 5, 6, 7 billion. Look at the earnings, I think it was 7 something close billion of capex spending, right? And we know how much. I mean, capex is also product development. Oracle does a lot of product development, but that number was around 1 billion the whole time before, right? We know before this whole build out came, and before it was like a build out which would align to how many database access data systems you would be moving over. It was an organic trickle thing, which is good to show nice cloud growth to the investor community. But it's not the same thing in terms of like now putting out data centers everywhere, investing into NVIDIA machines, having them, building the supercluster. Right, like what's my top 3 news, right? I mean, nobody has a big supercluster like this in the cloud right now, and that attracts workloads, right? So, and that's what Oracle needs to maybe not be in the number 4 position forever, but maybe jump ahead of Google, which is number 3 in terms of overall cloud revenue. Yeah.
Every year, I like to, at this conference, and then I'll sort of do the reverse at SAP Sapphire, I like to take stock. I like to ask people to take stock, industry analysts such as yourself or my coworkers at TechTarget. Where does this leave Oracle in its competition against SAP in terms of whether it's gaining ground or losing ground in its big competitor, at least in enterprise apps? And this time I'd like to think about it, though, in terms of maybe 3 areas. The first one would be success in moving its on-premises customers to its cloud offerings.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right now at Cloud World and after the announcements and just where Oracle was before the show started, are they further along with the announcements and where they are in 2024 or falling behind on that vis-a-vis SAP?
Oh no, Oracle. I mean, we can even handicap it, right? So finance is pretty much the same, more or less. I don't see a differentiating between the 2 parts, right? There's a race to zero FTE finance, right? Which means a lot of automation, right? It's not going to be zero FTE, but significant reduction of people there. And that's going to be an AI question. And AI is going to be cheaper and more readily available for Oracle. So my expectation is in the race for zero FTE finance that Oracle will get ahead of SAP in that category. But we'll see in 1 year where we're going to be there. I'd move over to HCM, very close to near to my heart. Significant advantage on the Oracle side. The only thing where SAP is ahead is the number of payrolls supported, but these are old ECC payrolls. The world runs literally on this. I don't know how many people are being paid from them. So that's the weakness on the Oracle side, but it's the only weakness, right? It used to be also workforce management. They're building workforce management for healthcare, obviously, for Cerner. And it's a very complex healthcare. So already retailers have gone live who also have complex, not healthcare, sorry, workforce management are using that, right? Manufacturing, the old SAP capability in ECC is significantly ahead. So, but it's not helping manufacturing customers to upgrade. In this year alone, since Chris Leone started, Oracle has done more manufacturing advances than in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't want to do anybody wrong, but they're closing that gap with modern manufacturing, which is different than the traditional manufacturing, which comes out of the MRP of the 80s of last century, right? Which is an ECC, so SAP customers will pay attention. Purchasing is pretty much the same, where SAP has an advantage is, and they talk about this all the time, on the Ariba side, on the worldwide purchasing. Yeah, there's no question about it. And both of them, last but not least, to CRM, CX, are doing the same thing, are trying to attack Salesforce again, which keeps ridiculing them on the little market share they have from the back office, right? Both a very similar approach to Sapphire announcement from SAP. Show me where my orders are. Very identical attempt right now from Oracle here at Cloud World, right? To show where things are. And it's a very valid point, right? I mean, I just saw a demo from Salesforce. And the demo was a nice demo, was about getting a product ordered which couldn't be delivered in time, but where you would get it, there were stores and you could get in the store, and doing this for a chat agent, and the product would be reserved for you. No, would be promised to you, but it would never be reserved in the warehouse management system, right? So there is an angle, I think, to take stock for any ERP vendor with the awareness of the supply chain and the warehouse situation, availability situation from the traditional CM vendors. So we'll be seeing that. So here's my handicap between SAP and Oracle as of mid-September 2024. Huge, significant advantage there. I mean, we'll see interesting things coming out of TechEd this year. I think the platform tooling is just getting along. I think it's not going to help if you have no CTO for a time till they find somebody new. The latest departure at SAP was my namesake, not related to Jürgen Müller, obviously. It never helps if you have a rudderless organization. Technology is very important. Now reports to Christian Klein. but I don't see them doing the same things on the platform side like Oracle has to do, who has a veritable platform business on its own, right? So the SAP attempts to sell HANA as a database standalone and the stack have been largely folded, which business-wise was the right decision because they weren't going anywhere.
So finally, and maybe in some ways the biggest, most trendy topic of all, where did they stand and what did Cloud World do to advance perhaps Oracle's positioning in terms of applying AI, especially generative AI, in ways that really deliver value for customers?
We'll see from the uptake because everything is so new from that perspective, right? But across the board, there's significant uptake across all products on the Oracle side, right? Again, aided by there's only one way of doing this. A very strong value proposition will never use your data. That's a step to other people where the concern is there. So it's really going to be now the fall of AI in the sense of that we have to see where someone who's ahead and providing capabilities like Oracle will have the customer stories of people using this and all kinds around the stack, right? If you look at the charts, the slides are eye charts and how many AI capabilities have been provided, right? The interesting thing for the fall will be enterprise always like to have package capability that's reliable, predictable. They pay for that. It's working all the same. The question is, are we advanced enough in generative AI to create value with the package capabilities? Are you not better off in a platform approach, right? And Oracle has not gone, there's a platform ability to build everything yourself, but on the SaaS side, they're not doing the platform approach. We'll see platform approaches from other vendors this fall, and we'll see what is better.
Holger, this has been fascinating as always, and it's always great to talk to you after a conference or anytime.
It's great questions, David. It's not me. So thank you. I always enjoy talking
Thanks.
to you, and thanks for having me. Hopefully
Sure.
speak to you again.